The fog rolled in thick and heavy. It swallowed the streets, the houses, even the faint glow of the lanterns. Emma walked carefully, her boots muffled by the damp cobblestones. Every step echoed, but only for a heartbeat before the mist devoured it. A cold wind brushed against her neck. It carried a faint sound, almost too soft to hear. A whisper. She stopped, listening. The whisper repeated, curling around her ears like smoke. Her pulse quickened, and a shiver ran down her spine. The streets were empty, yet the voice felt close, impossibly near. The fog shifted, thickening around her legs. Emma could not see her own hands. The whisper came again, drawing her forward. It was faintly calling her name. The sound was not human, yet it mimicked the tone of a familiar voice. Emma's breath caught. Her heart thudded in her chest. Every instinct told her to turn, yet she could not move. The alley ahead loomed like a shadow. The mist inside it was darker, almost solid. The whisper grew louder, winding around her mind. It was not just a sound, it was a pull, drawing her into the darkness. She stepped in hesitantly. The walls pressed close, damp and cold against her fingers. Every shadow seemed to twist toward her. The whisper became clearer, a strange, melodic cadence that felt alive. Her ears rang, yet she could not stop listening. It was beckoning her, teasing her with something she could not name. The street behind her vanished in the fog. She was alone. A sudden clatter rang out. Emma spun around. Nothing was there. The whisper continued, now sharper, almost urgent. Her skin prickled. The air smelled of wet stone and decay. Something moved in the corner of her vision. She blinked, but the shape was gone. The whisper came again, closer this time, threading through her thoughts. Emma realized it was not just a sound. It was in her head. It knew her fears. A shadow detached itself from the mist. It glided silently, tall and indistinct, following her every step. The whisper repeated, more insistent, almost desperate. It was calling her, promising answers, promising danger. She tried to step backward, but her feet hit nothing but fog. The shadow loomed closer. Her hands trembled. Her breath came in shallow gasps. And then she saw it, a door, ancient and warped, standing alone in the mist. A faint glow seeped from its edges. The whisper became a chant, urging her forward. Emma's legs moved, drawn to the door as if by some invisible force. She reached for the handle. The metal was ice cold, biting through her gloves. The whisper surged, filling her mind with images she could not understand. Faces twisted in fear, eyes wide and unblinking. The door creaked open, revealing a room of shadows and strange shapes. A single candle flickered, casting dancing light on walls covered in strange symbols. The whisper filled the air, wrapping around her chest. It seemed to breathe with her, alive and patient. Emma stepped inside, the door closing silently behind her. The shadows shifted, coalescing into forms she could not name. The whisper grew, now louder, echoing through the room. It was not asking, it was demanding. Her hands trembled as she tried to retreat. The shadows moved faster, circling, closing in. The candlelight flickered violently. The whisper repeated her name again, each syllable sharp and piercing. She wanted to scream, yet no sound escaped. The room tilted, the walls stretching and bending. Shadows pressed against her vision, and the whisper became a scream of hundreds of voices. Emma's mind reeled, unable to distinguish her own thoughts from the call of the mist. Something cold brushed her shoulder. She spun around. Nothing was there. The whisper continued, softer now, coaxing her forward again. A figure emerged from the fog in the center of the room, tall, cloaked in darkness, faceless. It raised a hand, pointing toward a small, ancient bell hanging from the ceiling. The whisper surged once more, aligning with her heartbeat. Emma felt herself drawn to the bell. Every nerve in her body screamed in protest. The shadows closed in slightly. Her fingers grazed the rope. The bell swung gently, though there was no wind. The whisper became louder, almost unbearable. It promised understanding, and yet a terrible price. Emma's hand hesitated, trembling above the rope. The fog outside the room pressed in against the walls. The shadows waited, silent but moving. The bell seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heart. The whisper called again, patient, insistent, inescapable. Emma's eyes widened. Her breath came in shallow bursts. The rope seemed to hum under her touch. And in the depth of the fog, the whisper promised that once the bell rang, nothing would ever be the same. Emma's fingers hovered over the rope, frozen in hesitation. The whisper grew louder, twisting her thoughts, burrowing into her mind. It was not merely sound, it was presence, alive and aware. Every heartbeat matched the rhythm of the unseen call. The bell swayed slowly, casting shadows across the walls. The flickering candlelight seemed to bend toward it, highlighting strange symbols carved into the ceiling. The shadows surrounding her shifted, stretching taller, reaching closer. Emma felt the cold fingers brush her skin, though nothing was there. A sudden rush of wind slammed the door behind her. The candle flickered violently, nearly extinguished. The room spun, and Emma stumbled, gripping the rope tightly. The whisper surged into a scream, 1,000 voices echoing together, calling her name in a chorus of dread. Her vision blurred, yet she could see the bell clearly. It hung there like a sentinel, untouched by time, pulsing with a dark energy. The shadows advanced, circling her, silent but oppressive. Every step she took felt heavier, as if the air itself resisted her. Emma's mind raced. She remembered the stories whispered in her childhood. The bell in the mist was said to call those who dared walk too far into the fog. Those who answered it vanished, leaving only silence and the echo of the bell. She realized she was standing at the edge of that same fate. A hand, cold and intangible, rested on her shoulder. She spun around, but the figure was gone. The whisper had grown personal now, almost seductive. It promised understanding, secrets hidden in the fog for centuries, and knowledge no living soul had ever possessed. Emma's heart pounded, threatening to burst from her chest. Every instinct screamed at her to run, yet the room was a trap. The shadows closed in tighter, merging with the fog that seeped in under the door. She felt herself being pulled forward, toward the bell. Her hand touched the rope. A jolt of icy energy shot up her arm, freezing her blood. The bell trembled as if acknowledging her touch. The whisper swelled, cascading through her ears like a flood of voices, pressing into her thoughts. It was no longer just calling her, it was inside her. Emma's knees buckled, and she fell to the floor. Visions exploded behind her eyes, figures trapped in the fog, faces twisted in silent screams. The bell tolled once, deep and resonant, and the room shook with the sound. Shadows pressed against the walls, growing, pulsating, alive. She felt herself becoming part of it, her mind tethered to the whispering fog. A sudden clarity struck her. The bell fed on fear, on the submission of those who answered its call. It did not simply call, it consumed. The shadow that had guided her, the whisper that had pulled her forward, it was all part of the bell's hunger. Emma scrambled backward, pulling her hands off the rope. The bell swayed violently now, though no one had touched it. The shadows lunged closer, and the whisper became insistent, desperate, clawing at her mind. Every heartbeat echoed the toll of the bell, faster and faster. The candle flickered and went out. Darkness enveloped the room completely. The fog seeped in, thick and suffocating, hiding the walls and the floor. Emma felt the shadows press against her, tangible now, cold and clammy. The whisper was deafening, inside her head and all around her. She screamed, a sound swallowed instantly by the fog. Her hands clawed at the walls, but there were none. The floor vanished beneath her feet, replaced by endless blackness. She was falling, spinning, weightless, caught in the grip of the bell. The bell tolled again, deep and resonant, and the voices of the fog cried out. Emma felt her own memories twisting, merging with the centuries trapped in the bell. Faces of the lost, the vanished, stared at her with hollow eyes. The shadow hovered above her, silent, waiting for her surrender. Emma realized that the only way to survive was to resist, to fight the pull of the fog. She closed her eyes and focused on her breath, on the rhythm of her own heart, not the bell. The shadows hissed, retreating slightly. The whisper clawed at her mind, but she forced it back, centering herself in her own thoughts. A glimmer of light appeared ahead, faint but steady. The fog seemed thinner there, and the shadows recoiled. Emma crawled toward it, dragging her trembling body through the blackness. The bell tolled one final time, a deep, sorrowful sound, then fell silent. Emma emerged into the alley beyond the courtyard. The fog was lighter now, curling around the street like gentle smoke. The town seemed normal again, familiar, though every shadow seemed slightly darker, more alive. Her legs gave out, and she sank to the cobblestones, gasping for air. The whisper was gone, but she could feel its presence lingering. The bell had not vanished, it had only retreated. Emma knew she had survived, but she also knew the fog was patient. It waited for those who dared wander too close, for those who answered its call. She rose slowly, each step heavy with exhaustion and awe. The night was quiet now, the streets peaceful. Yet a chill ran through her spine, reminding her that the fog, the bell, and the shadows were never truly gone. They lingered, whispering, waiting, ready to call again. Emma walked home, keeping her eyes fixed on the ground. The town slept, unaware of what lurked in the fog. And far away, in the silence, she thought she heard it again, a faint, distant toll, a whisper carried on the wind. The fog had spoken, and it had remembered her name. Days passed, and the fog no longer pressed against the town. The streets returned to their quiet, familiar shapes. Emma moved carefully, still haunted by the memory of the shadows and the bell. The whisper had vanished, but its presence lingered in her thoughts. She returned to the courtyard one last time, hesitant and wary. The bell hung silently, motionless, its cold metal surface reflecting the pale morning light. No shadow stirred, no whisper drifted through the mist. It was as though the fog itself had waited for her courage to return. Emma placed her hand gently on the bell. She felt no energy, no pull, only the cold weight of centuries resting silently. A quiet calm settled over her. She realized the bell had tested her, but she had survived. The fog remained at the edges of the town, soft and distant, no longer threatening. Emma walked home slowly, the early sun cutting through the last wisps of mist. Every shadow now seemed ordinary, every street familiar. And yet, she could not shake the feeling that the bell and the fog were watching, patient, waiting. At night, she sometimes heard the faintest toll in her dreams, soft and distant. A reminder that the whispers had not entirely left. But she no longer feared them as before. She had faced the darkness and survived. The town slept peacefully, unaware of the hidden forces that lingered beyond the fog. Emma had returned from the edge of the unknown, carrying its memory within her. And though the bell still waited in silence, the whispers would not claim her again. She stepped inside her home, closing the door behind her. The fog drifted past the windows, harmless now. The bell remained, quiet, a relic of shadows and whispers. And Emma finally allowed herself to breathe, knowing she had walked through fear and emerged whole. The fog had spoken, but she had learned to listen without surrendering.